Hi, it's Martie Cordaro, president for Union Omaha Soccer and the Omaha Storm Chasers Baseball. Right here live from Warner Park today, or I don't know about live, but it's being recorded live. But I'm glad to be with you as I've been talking with Brian here for a few minutes. There's so many facets to the leadership world and walking through a leadership world right now as it relates to COVID. And then in our world, two organizations that operate in the same facility that have different needs and have different uh, business leaders, different owners, if you will, and that being Union Omaha on the soccer side and the Storm Chasers on the baseball side. And then furthermore, we have organizations that we report to. On the soccer side, it's USL, headquartered in Tampa, and then Major League Baseball now oversees the development farm system, which has been minor league baseball. So they are our new boss, if you will, on the baseball side. And that is a brand new relationship with an agreement that is being finalized any day now between the teams and Major League Baseball. So many different things this year that our general manager, Lori Schlender, and then myself are walking through every single day as we lead these organizations for Gary Green and his ownership groups. A little bit about me. My name is Martie Cordaro again. I am originally from Ruston, Louisiana. I grew up playing baseball, played a little bit of soccer, a little bit more basketball, a little bit more football, but baseball was really what I played most, played through high school. I also played drums, and I played in a band, and after going to Louisiana Tech to be a coach and teacher in education, I dropped out of school for almost 4 years. Grew my hair out, signed a record deal, traveled and toured, and I had no idea at that time that what I was going through in music, although I quit sports at that time, was actually leading me to a career in the sports business world. So after we finished our run as a band, went back to school, long story short, changed my major to marketing and started my path to get here in the Sarpy County, Omaha area. Worked in minor league baseball in Jackson, Tennessee from 99 till 02. Then my wife and I moved to Birmingham, Alabama, moved in 04 up to Battle Creek, Michigan, and then moved in fall of 06 to Rosenblatt Stadium, where I had the pleasure of my first 4 years being the final 4 years at Rosenblatt Stadium, a facility we all have so many memories and we all love so much and miss. So my career has been baseball. 3 years at Louisiana Tech while I was finishing my marketing degree, selling baseball for the baseball program there. And then minor league baseball the last 23 years, 22 seasons, unfortunately, with last year being wiped out. We're really excited about this year. We will be playing baseball at some point. We're eager for that to be April. Don't yet quite have a schedule. On the soccer side, we did start our inaugural season late last year. We played August, September, October, having the second best team in the league. We led the league in attendance, selling out all 8 home matches. And, I learned a lot. I am becoming becoming a soccer guy in addition to being a baseball guy. And, I can honestly say before the soccer endeavor, I wasn't. I didn't watch the sport a lot. I didn't know a lot about the sport from a demographic perspective, from a social justice perspective, from the impact on growing Gen X and Gen Z, as well as millennial groups. Soccer is the hottest sports property in the country at all levels, from Major League Soccer all the way down to youth soccer. More youth play soccer in the state of Nebraska than baseball and softball. It was a little known fact. So I had to get well versed, and I had to get, as we say in the South, learned up very quickly on the soccer side when we announced on May 1st of 2019 before we played our first match, which was August 1st of 2020. So I'll talk a little bit about that, about balancing. But, for me, leadership really is quite simple. It's not simple to execute, but it's simple from the standpoint that you have to know fundamentally that you're in it for others and you're not in it for yourself. You are leading others towards a common goal, whether that's within a department when you're managing or directing, or it's a division, or it's an entire organization, or in the case here at Warner Park, it's leading 2 independent organizations. And I believe that when individuals understand that you don't have to be the owner, you don't have to be the CEO, you don't have to be the COO, you don't have to be the GM or the boss to be a leader, that you can be a leader in your world of domain, then I think all the other leaders become stronger as well, because you go from having one to having 10 to 15 leaders within an organization, depending on the size of that. And for me, when you are working for others and when you're pulling for others, you're also pushing them at the same time. And being a good leader is not only supporting them in what they need from a standpoint of human capital or monetary capital to help their division or help them get their jobs done, but it's also pushing them, telling them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, on a day-by-day basis. And that's difficult. That's something, it's funny, I reconnected just this past week with a boss of mine who's lives in Arizona. He was my first GM I worked for, and he actually met someone from here in the metro area, and it prompted he and I to reconnect and talk about the interaction with the individual that he met. But furthermore, we were able to reconnect, and it brought me all the way back to Jackson, Tennessee. And my first year there was 99. So at some point in either 2000 or 2001, he told me my biggest challenge, my biggest obstacle to becoming a GM in this business and growing in this business was I had to learn to become more of an asshole. And that was something that at the time I looked at him and was kind of cross-eyed, and I really didn't understand what he meant. And he didn't mean not be kind to people. He didn't mean go around being a jerk. He didn't mean step on others to reach my goals. But what he did mean was to tell people what they need to hear, to be very upfront, to be brutally honest, and also to tell those above you, whoever you're working with there, what is going on. Don't sugarcoat things. Be very transparent. And once I understood what he meant, then and only then could I start to work on those things within my department. At that time, I was running sales. I was running marketing and promotions, in-game operations. I was running a number of different units within the team, which was at the time the West Tennessee Diamond Jacks, AA for the Chicago Cubs, before moving on to Birmingham. And that's really when I realized I can be a GM. However, if I think I'm ready, I'm not. And that's really when I started to become a leader within my department and the departments and the people that I worked with, and really started to focus as much on them as myself and my sales goals and my sales targets and my sales relationships. And that was kind of the path that I took. And I mentioned earlier, after Jackson, we went to Birmingham, Alabama, and that's when I started to get inquiries on other GM jobs. And for me, it wasn't saying yes, and for my wife, it wasn't saying yes to the first opportunity. So it actually was 3 or 4 opportunities before we did say yes to going to Battle Creek, Michigan. And I actually turned down the Battle Creek, Michigan job a couple of times before taking it. And I only tell that story because the decision to go there or not go there really wasn't based on leadership at that time, because I had multiple opportunities, but it was about what was to come and putting yourself in a position to better succeed, putting yourself in a position to learn more quickly. And that's ultimately what Battle Creek was. It was probably the worst opportunity of the 3 or 4 that Sarah and I were considering. It was absolutely the coldest for someone who grew up in Louisiana, lived in Tennessee, then lived in Alabama, and I'm going to move where? To Michigan? And it was cold, not quite as cold as Nebraska. It had more snow. But what that opportunity ended up affording me, that was that right place, right time that you hear a lot of times, the luck that you hear a lot of times. And, those are things that I don't really, it's not that I don't believe in luck, and I don't believe in right place, right time happening for everyone, because I think it is about choice. And that choice that Sarah and I made was the opportunity to work with Alan Stein, who would go on to become the president of the Omaha Royals. And then Alan and I ultimately ended up doing a deal with Sarpy County, and I'm talking from that ballpark right here at Warner Park. So that gave me the opportunity to go honed my skills as a GM in a market that had never had minor league baseball success, in a market that was going to be very challenging to ever have success. And I didn't know at the time when I was going to Battle Creek that ownership group would acquire the Omaha Royals franchise. But that's ultimately what happened. One of my claims to fame is nailing the coffin shut in Battle Creek, Michigan. That team did not make it. So on my resume, I have shuttering a minor league franchise is on my resume, and basically putting a franchise out of business. And the leadership that I learned from there was wearing more hats and having to do more things. And after the first year we were in Battle Creek, the team was put up for sale, and I had a lot of questions in my head as the GM, as the leader of the franchise. What does success look like in a year that you know is a lame duck year? And we ended up defining, those of us that stayed, about half the staff and most of my leadership team did leave and go on to other jobs, and I did not, and I still don't blame them to this day. However, the ones of us that remained, we looked at success as running through the tape. There were going to be fans in Battle Creek that year, which was 2006. There were going to be fans that had supported that team for 15 years. There were baseball fans that were going to be frustrated that professional baseball was leaving. So we had to put our best foot forward. And that year was the first year that I ran concessions in addition to running a team. So I was wearing two hats then. 2/3 through the season, our groundskeeper left, so I kind of became the pseudo groundskeeper. Although I wasn't doing the work because there was so many other things going on, I was running that crew. And there was so much that year that I was going through that I didn't realize that was probably the year that really made me the leader that I am today. There really is very little can't, will not, we won't in my vocabulary on a day-by-day basis. Obviously, you have to use those words when you're making decisions. You obviously have to use them when you're making purchasing decisions outside of an organization. But on a day-by-day basis, I really want someone to tell me, or someone on my staff to bring to me solutions and ideas, and not really complaining about others or complaining about what we can't do. And that was the year that really pushed me into that. So then fast forward, moving here, I was not the GM my first year here. I was assistant GM in 07, and then I did become GM in 08. And then that's when the ownership group said, okay, find a place for us to play. And we pretty much knew it wasn't in the cards for us to play in the great stadium downtown where the college tournament is played each June. And there were 13 communities around the country that were asking us, are we interested in moving? And the answer was, no, we're not interested in moving, but we have to do what's best for the business. And lo and behold, there were some relationships that happened in market. I was introduced to Lee Polikoff. Alan Stein was on a layover in Memphis, flying back to Kentucky, and he met Mark Wayne. They were both on that plane heading to Louisville, I believe it was. And so again, luck, right place, right time, for me, was all about decisions that led up to that and putting ourselves in position. And we're talking from Warner Park now. I'm going to skip quite a bit ahead. We obviously opened the facility April of 2011. A lot has happened since then. A lot of unbelievable things have happened in Sarpy County. Sarpy County does not look like it did 10 years ago, much less 5 years ago, especially where we sit right here at 126th Street and 370 here at Warner Park. But the last 3 years have been quite challenging, if you will. We had one of our best economic years ever in 2017 in the time that I've been here in the metro area, dating back to 07. And then 2019 was one of our more challenging ones for a number of reasons. We had some turnover, which led to reduced sales relationships in the community with some of our sponsors and ticket holders. We had a challenging weather year. We didn't have a very competitive team that year. So it was a tough year financially all the way around. I think we all know what is still happening. And I wonder if today is December the 70th or if it actually is February something right now. We always joke, is it still 2020? But then COVID happened. So we had all these grand plans that we were working on from the business side of the baseball organization, the Chasers, all these grand plans. And then as Gary Green was in town the week that the world stopped, it was a Wednesday night, March 11th, when the NBA made a decision that they were going to shut down operations. And, you know, right or wrong, the world looks, we all look at communities and we all look at the world through the lens of sports. And when the NBA made that decision, then the dominoes started to happen with college basketball and the tournament, then Major League Baseball and spring training, and so on and so forth. And then businesses and companies started to then say, "Oh wow, this is really happening. Now we need to take a look." And you know, we shut our office. The last day we shut our office was Friday, the 13th of March. Quite fitting. And you know, at that time, I don't think as a leader I was really thinking on, okay, how are Lori and I, and at the time Matt Hominoff, our COO on the Union Omaha side, which I'll get to in a few minutes, but we weren't really thinking about how we're going to lead people through this, because we thought we'd be playing baseball by the end of April, beginning of May. You know, none of us really knew the significance, the impact, the depth. No one knew from a health and a science perspective the impact it would have on, you know, those most vulnerable in our communities. Or the different groups of people that it would impact in different ways. And, you know, we're still dealing with that. But, you know, we immediately started communicating with our staff, our stakeholders, our sponsors, our business partners, other community leaders, our premier partners. We started that Saturday, the 14th, communicating on social media, the next week via phone calls and emails. And I think that was a sign of leadership, even though we weren't looking at that and talking about, okay, as leaders, what are we going to do? We were simply doing what we do each day, and that it was communicate and continue to be transparent and continue to be upfront. And really, we were leading from a position of strength and one of as being as proactive as possible, although, you know, the virus caused us all to be reactive, but we were trying to be as proactive as possible. And I think that's one of the main reasons why 95+% of our contracts and our business relationships simply rolled into 21 from 20. And a large amount of our sponsors said, you know what, we're going to work with you, we're going to stay with you for 2020, and kept a large amount of their sponsor dollars in 2020, even though we didn't have baseball. We ultimately ended up having around 180 events. Almost 100,000 people. We worked very closely with Sarah Schramm at Sarpy Health, and we started talking to her before the end of March. What can we do? Not what can't we do? I talked about that earlier, and that was something that really rang through our curbside to goes on Tuesdays that Andrea Bedora led, our drive-in fireworks that started in April. We were the only fireworks show in the entire country the entire month of April, and that was right here in Sarpy County, and that was led again by Andrea and her special events team. And that kind of snowballed into, you know what, we also have a soccer team. We have a soccer business. And on that side, you know, leading through COVID at that time, I can't tell you a more crushing blow. I can't tell you a more disappointing blow than having your inaugural season, a year that's supposed to be one of the best that you'll ever have as a company for a startup. The excitement of 2,000 plus season tickets and everything that was going into soccer, and then to have COVID just punch it right in the mouth. But we knew that if there was an opportunity to play, that we were going to have an opportunity to have some fans, although limited. And we really worked hard as an organization, not just myself or Lori or Matt at that time leading through, but we led together as an organization and successfully had the 8 games, averaged 2,500 with the sellouts, and had no COVID cases and no COVID traced back to the facility either. And again, that was all done by really working together as a team and being leaders together. Now, as it relates to leading the two organizations, you know, the time management is something that is very difficult. You know, the time management is something that getting that right allows the other pieces of the leadership to happen. And I went into it thinking, okay, I'm going to work baseball 60%. I'm going to work soccer 40% of my time. And after a couple months, and I wish I would have realized earlier. But after a couple months, when I realized that I needed to let that happen organically, let that happen naturally based on the needs of our staff and the needs that they had to be led. Some projects needed more input than others from our team leads and myself here. And once we figured that out, then we really started, to have some fluidity on the soccer side as well as the baseball side. It did help, being candid, it did help that we didn't have Storm Chasers games last year to be able to get the soccer going and started. Although it was, pretty crushing to our business, being down 91% year over year from 2019 into 2020. And when we do play baseball, whether it's April or May, it will have been either 20 months or 21 months since September 1st of 2019 since we recognized a single dollar of revenue for our actual baseball business. And, I tell you that story not to really be sharing our financial information, but really more to tell you that if we didn't have solid leaders in our departments here and we didn't develop them in our organization, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today, because it probably would have been worse than that. And we have a great core staff here, and we're just going to continue to push. We're going to continue to be transparent. When it's time to roll up our sleeves, we all do it. We all do that. We don't just shove it down to our middle tier and our entry level employees. Lori and I really look to lead from a position of strength.
So, Marty, I have a question for you. As you mentioned, the transitions that you've taken place from various cities with various baseball teams, mentorship and leading, and it seems like that's a staple of this business and industry is transitioning. So how do you feel, or how do you see mentorship, and what does that look like? And then I guess with that being said, as people transition, what is the kind of, how does that pull the heartstrings, I guess, so to speak?
Yeah, mentorship in any business is tough, but it can be and is more rewarding than it is difficult and tough at most times. What I've had to learn about mentorship from a leadership perspective is you can only push, you can only request, you can only urge, encourage, challenge someone so much. At some point in time, they have to want it for themselves. And as leaders, as directors, as mentors, we, or you, have to be able to properly evaluate at what point am I investing too much time in employee A when employee B may be more raw but more talented, more raw but more eager, but not as talented as employee A. And that's also I don't know if it's a trick or a talent of leadership, but having that barometer and being able to judge that is really important. And it's not that you can't mentor more than one person at a time, but if you're talking about in a department, who is going to be the next leader of this department, trying to figure out who that is and identifying to be able to properly mentor, the person on the other end has to be willing, and if you're just continue to bang your head, then, that's something I do urge you. Don't take too much time on people who don't want to be led versus the people who do want to be led, because, becoming a better leader and practicing those mentor skills are important, but again, you have to have somebody that wants to be led. And then as far as in our business, everybody thinks they want to work in the pro sports world. They want to work in college athletics. In reality is we're working in business, we're working in relationships, we're working in leadership. It's no different from, a printing company and an architect firm, a plumbing company, whether it's residential or commercial. It's no different than working in, consumer banking, commercial banking. It's all about people. It's all about being upfront, and that's the same thing. Leadership is transportable. So when we're trying to identify who the next leaders in our business is, we have to really look at, okay, which of our staff are worried about money versus who is passionate about simply doing the right thing and improving. Who's worried about, in this case, staying in Omaha, or who's more flexible to moving if the right opportunity exists outside of our organization. And people always ask me, what's your favorite moment? What's your favorite memory? Or what do you like best? I like two things. One, I like literally walking around here on a game night or an event night and seeing granddaughter, grandfather, grandmother, or mom and dad, son, friends hanging out, just walking around the concourse or taking in the action on the field, whatever it is. That's one. So it's not really a moment, it's multiple moments. We always say we're in the memory making business. The other side of that is the mentoring piece. I love it when our staff goes on to realize their dreams and goals. If it's with us, great. If it's within the sports world but not with us, great. And if it's outside of the sports world in a different business, great. And if our staff is working hard and is being transparent with us, we're gonna continue to help push them and realize their dreams and goals.
And Marty, one final kind of question is, what about what it's like when you assign somebody to a position, but then find out that really wasn't suited for them? What does that look like?
Yeah, that happens a lot. You hire people that have had sales success somewhere else. They come in and they struggle with sales, or you hire someone in sales, for example, and they struggle, but they're eager and they're new to the business and they're really committed, and maybe they have a more operational type brain, an internal, processes, talents. So for us, it's really finding people that want to be here, number one, and then working with them to find what fits them best, number two. We really work hard because this is a hard business from the standpoint of the hours and the lesser pay than most other industries. We really work hard to find jobs that fit talents and the strengths of our team staff before we just write people off. Oh, that wasn't successful. Because sometimes it is the training. Sometimes it's the company. Maybe the organization didn't properly train, and we have to take a look at ourselves. And then sometimes it's just not a good fit. Sometimes it's a better fit in a different position. And we have done that with a couple of positions over the last year, and both of those individuals are still here and are doing much better than they were in their previous roles.
Thank you, Marty. Any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share?
Look, I for those that are listening out there and paying attention, you obviously are the group out there that are going to continue to mentor folks and are going to continue to lead people within your department or throughout organizations. So, stay strong. This year is going to be challenging. There will continue to be hurdles, and we'll only get through it as companies, as departments, as companies, and as a community as we communicate with each other and support each other's businesses. And we really hope that you'll come back out, see Storm Chasers baseball this spring, as well as Union Omaha Soccer and many other special events in 2021, because we want this to continue to be a community gathering place. So thank you and have a great day.